Hi, I'm Tessa. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students for the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, and I want to talk a little bit about netiquette in an online setting. There are some netiquette expectations when taking classes online. So, what exactly is netiquette and what does it mean? If you go back to my dictionary in my closet, uh, netiquette doesn't even exist. That tells you how old I am. But really, netiquette is the correct and acceptable way of using the internet. It's been developed as things become online. It's a combination of our behavior and what is socially acceptable and our conduct in an online setting. It's really about setting that first good impression and making sure that your reputation is where you want it to be. So when we talk about netiquette, where can it take place? There's so many different social media avenues out there now that I can't even keep up with them. But really it is all about whatever is online in any type of online setting. So it's not just our classroom, it's social media, it's texting on our phone, it's gaming, it's participating in seminar, whatever the case may be. And there are different types of netiquette. What is acceptable at the social level is going to be different than what we have at our personal experiences versus professional. So when we start to think about emojis and acronyms and abbreviations and texting language, they're not all going to be acceptable at the same place. So when we're looking at LOL, that's considered a social or personal way of communicating. It's not acceptable at the professional level. When we're addressing our professors, we're not going to say, hey, dude. We're not going to say, hey, prof. We're going to say Mr. or Ms. or Professor Smith. We're going to look at emoticons and emojis. They really are not considered acceptable unless you've already had a faculty member who is using them. They are more social and more personal. Some terms when it comes to netiquette. Flame. This is someone who's going to be argumentative or attacking or maybe instigating in an online environment. You know that person. That it's also could be called a troll. So that's someone who is participating in those flaming instances or instigating. All caps in an online environment means you're yelling or you're shouting. So please don't yell and shout at me when you send me an email. Sarcasm should never be used in an online setting because it's too difficult to decipher whether it is sarcasm or not. Cyberbullying is going to be a case where you are bullying or harassing someone online and you do not want to find yourself in that situation. A digital footprint. This is basically everywhere you have been online. So if you've visited a site, your footprint is there. If you've commented on something, your footprint is there and it does not go away. Something can be deleted, but it can still be retrieved. So remember, before you hit send, think about what you're doing because once it's out there, it can't come back. This is my top 10 just because I've been working in higher ed for a long time and I've developed some real pet peeves, if you will say. So no specific order here, but if you're in an online environment, always use spell check. Sending an email without using spell check sets a really poor example for yourself if it is riddled with errors. Watch your tone. Sometimes we say things in an email we wouldn't say to someone face to face just because it's kind of we can hide behind our computer. So read it out loud if you need to double check to make sure, is that the tone I'm trying to come across? Again, avoid sarcasm. Do not shout at me and use all caps. Ignore those people who are instigating in flames. Be considerate. This is where we go back to what our mother taught us. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Show some respect. Just because you don't have to look them in the eye doesn't mean they don't deserve respect. Be honest. Sometimes it's easy to fall into that little white lie while you're sending an email because who's going to check? But it does catch up with you down the road. And it's just not a good place to be. Beware of privacy and safety. Know what sites you're on and make sure that they're safe before you order anything. Always be professional. And what does that mean? Watch your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, and your capitalization. Your writing is your first impression. Suggestions when you're getting ready to send emails to your professors. How do you want these to go? Do not harass your professor, even if it's unintentional. You should allow 2 business days before responding to or expecting a response from your professor. So, what does that mean? If you send an email at 5 o'clock on a Friday, 2 business days is 5 o'clock on Tuesday. They have until Tuesday night to respond to you. Don't send a whole bunch of emails in one day. If you're one of those people who has a tendency to send an email and then say, "Oop, I meant to send this," and oh, one more thing, don't send that email right away. Keep it for a little bit and make sure that you've thought of everything you want to send, so you send one email. Avoid replying to all. You only need to reply to all when everyone needs the answer to whatever you're sending. If it's directed to one person, reply to that one person or forward to that one person. But don't send to all if you don't have to. Do not engage in spam or forward unnecessary emails. We all have full inboxes. It's not necessary to just make that worse. Do not use emoticons. Again, unless you know someone well, emoticons can be taken different ways, so don't use them. Avoid texting language at all costs in an email. This is a professional environment, whether we're at a workplace or in our classroom. Texting is a social and personal communication that should not be used in email. Use proper spelling, punctuation, grammar, and capitalization. Again, pet peeve of mine. Less is more. You don't have to write a book. If you notice it's getting really long, stop and think, is this really going to be read, or are they going to skim it and miss something? So if that's the case, go back, cut it down, shorten it up. Less is more. And then wait 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours if you get something that is upsetting you. If we find ourselves reacting in a way that might not be the best, it's better to walk away and come back the next day or maybe even 2 days later, rather than responding in a harsh manner or in a frustrated manner and sending an email that we regret. When you're talking to your professor in an email, a few things you need to know. Always use a proper salutation. And this goes back to, we're not calling our professor dude. We're not saying, hey. He or she has a name, and we want to be respectful and use that full name. Now, if he or she says, hey, call me Dr. T, then by all means call your professor Dr. T. But until you're told to do that, the name is the name. Your subject line should include your course number and your section, keeping in mind that your professor may teach multiple or a lot of classes, and so this will help you get the answers you need fastest because they can get to those sections all at once. Oops, getting a little crazy with my make your request clear. So again, if you have texting language, we can't always read that. If you're not using full sentence structures and punctuation and capitalization, it's really hard to read those emails, and we could misunderstand what you're asking us. Thank your professor in advance. You don't have to thank them after they answer you, because again, that's one more email they don't need. But if you say thanks in advance, then you're saving yourself that extra step and saving your professor the email. Sign your name. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to have a handwritten signature, but you need to have your name on there, because not everyone's email address is the name you use in your classroom, or maybe your email address doesn't clearly identify who you are, and we need to know who we're responding to. Proofread your email, spell check, grammar, punctuation, and then always use your PG email account. This is the one that you want to use for all school communication. Your personal one should be kept for personal use and should not be used for school. When it comes to seminars and webinars, you want to make sure that you're following Netiquette here as well. So you want to be on time. If you show up to a webinar 5 minutes late and you all come in and say, hey, sorry, I'm late, How disruptive is that? You wouldn't do that in a brick and mortar classroom. You wouldn't walk in and say, "Hey, I'm late, look at me." You'd probably slink in. And it's the same thing with an online webinar. You want to come in quietly so you don't disrupt everyone. It's same thing if you have to leave early. You don't want to announce that you're leaving early. Let your professor know. You can send them an email. "I'm sorry, I had to leave early," or let them know in advance. "I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to leave early." You can send those emails privately. Stay on topic. Sidebar conversations are very hard to follow when the professor is talking about something separate. You guys are going to get tired of hearing this, but correct spelling, punctuation, grammar, capitalization, you know it. Be respectful. It's not your place as a student to correct another student. It's not your place as a student to correct the professor. If you feel something needs corrected, a private email to your professor for both instances would be appropriate. Do not attack anyone else. And sometimes we don't even realize we're attacking until we go back and look at it. But just remember, it's not our place to sometimes correct and fix things. Discussion boards. Now, this is important. You want these to be well written. These are a reflection of you, and you're graded on these. So if you don't have a nice salutation, you don't sign off with your name, you don't even cover all the topics, or it's just kind of messy, that's not the impression you want, and that's not going to be the grade you're going to want to have on your assignment. Seminars now have cameras, and some of our discussion boards have cameras too. So keep in mind when you have a camera, whether it's Bongo or Zoom, your seminar has a background. And if you don't know what your background is, pay attention. You may need to put something up. Maybe you want to use one of those fake backgrounds, but having people walk back and forth across in the background is not professional. And who knows what they have? They may have something inappropriate in their hand. They may be dressed inappropriately. You may be dressed inappropriately. That's something to keep in mind. Is what you're wearing, is that what you would wear to your workplace or to an on-ground school? Because if top part up is not reflective of that, then you might want to fix it. Again, we want to avoid guests and others in the background being aware that they could be heard speaking. And safety, please do not get on camera while you're driving. Seminar can be made up with the alternative options so you don't have to miss those points. If in doubt, turn it off. That's just the better way to go. Then you don't have to worry about making that mistake and getting in trouble. Okay, these are all examples of what not to do, and I have literally taken these from someone's classroom or an email, and I am not kidding you. These are all true. You have got to be kidding me. How do we classify that? That's inappropriate. That's tone. Definitely got some tone. We're yelling here. All caps means we're yelling. I am an adult and I am old enough and smart enough. Again, tone. That's very condescending. You don't have to agree with your professor. You don't have to agree with your classmates, but we do want to be respectful, and how we talk and email them is a reflection on that. See you later. Texting language, we've already talked about this. We do not want to see this in any email or classroom. Do you have Mr. Smith? I just love his grading scale. He's a jerk. Okay, so we've got some sarcasm here going on, and we want to ignore sarcasm, so just don't send this. Might be you have a really good friend you want to vent to Mr. Smith about. Fine, you can vent, but let's keep it out of email. Who do you think you are? Wow, that's got some tone to it, doesn't it? Not appropriate. Again, you don't have to agree with your professor or a classmate, but we have to treat them professionally at all times. Maybe I should bleep this class. Well, they can drop the class, but that is considered a violation of our code of student conduct, even though they didn't use the swear words they were using or they were meaning. We know that means swearing, and swearing is a violation of policy. I need your help, please. This is asking nicely, but it's using texting language, and we want to avoid that. Sad face. Again, We're leaving emojis and emoticons out of our email. When is our assignment due? We got a couple things here. Due, it should be DUE, so grammar, spelling, right? When is our, OUR, grammar, spelling, right? Anyone interested in buying Avon? This is one we haven't discussed yet in this webinar. This is solicitation, and soliciting is a violation of our Code of Student Conduct. You cannot use your emails that you earned through the classroom or through Purdue Global in any way to solicit. Hey, prof, we've talked about this too. Salutations are important. This is not how we want to address our professor. You could say, hello, Professor Smith, hi, Professor Smith, or you could just say Mr. or Mrs. Smith. And back to this little old saying, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. I actually had someone tell me once, if you couldn't say it to your professor, don't say it. Or I mean, you couldn't say it to your grandmother, don't say it. Or you couldn't say it to your priest, don't say it. But if I tell my kids, if you wouldn't say it to my face, don't put it on social media, because there again, once it's out there, you can't get it back. All right. I know you'll all be fine. Just a little common sense. Good luck in your classes.